Guidelines: read before posting, keep questions concise, use paragraphs if you can't handle upsetting replies or the FAQ, don't ask.
I'm really happy for you. Okay.
I'm a woman, but I've always wondered why the bleep other women feel the need to always be talking endlessly all the time. Silence is a good thing, please shut up sometimes. The incessant conversations on the phone, on the subway or bus, yelling into the void, babbling at cafes, even when you come back to your residence it is endless blabbering. It's like poison to my ears. Not saying men can't be annoying, but they can be much quieter. Women talk so much more about psychological bleep, you can bather on about that drivel for hours and hours. Feelings and whatever, it's an endless void. Also, women have a higher pitched voice on average, so I think their voices just stand out more. Maybe an evolutionary thing. I know our hearing is more sensitive at high frequencies than low. Honestly, interesting answer. It's not that I couldn't talk about a topic for a long time, but I don't talk loudly, I don't babble on, and I don't talk like this every single day. It just sounds like noise to me. Like, imagine if someone told you to be as annoying as possible, that is their voices. It's also places you expect people to keep the voice down, public transport or late at night or early morning or a nice small cafe. It's not ASMR or a TED Talk, it's screeching animals in heat annoying. Nails on a chalkboard annoying. And zero self-awareness. Honestly, and this sounds like a personal issue. I would try to pick a quiet moment to picture laughed at voices like that as vividly as you can, and maybe get an bleep-ociation so you have a clue of where your anger is coming from. This is a bleep or mean you don't usually have issues with noisy stuff like someone eating an apple on that same train. Women definitely don't talk more loudly than men do. Also, in general, people, including other women, tend to see women as a state of exception, and pay more attention to women. Look at this, for example, female contributions to mixed-sex dialogues were rated as greater than male contributions by both male and female listeners. Female contributions were more likely to be overestimated when they were speaking a dialogue part perceived as probably female than when they were speaking a dialogue part perceived as probably male. They do talk more and loudly. It is not often I am around a group of annoying men, it happens but rarely, but women annoy me most of the time. If a man was loud, of course I feel the same. It's not most women, but the people who annoy me are mostly women. Even when I am friends with someone or genuinely like them, the grating voices really piss me off. A bleep on as it is done, I like them again. I don't like being around them when I want to have some peace or when I have real issues because they annoy me. I don't feel insecure or anything like that. I sometimes think it's misophonia or anxiety from PTSD or from issues with my mother, just mostly bleep my experiences have been from these incessantly loud women. They are never even talking about anything, just talking to fill the air with noise. There is nothing to gain from the conversation. And you could never even ask politely for them to be quiet. They get offended that you are trying to sleep or screaming into your ear. I just can't stand it, you know. To me, I think they lack intelligence and compably bion. I feel rage and stress in those moments, but keep it to myself most of the time. I don't get it either. Quote, they do talk more and loudly. Did you read the link? It's pretty damn rigorous. I mean, at the very least you'd say that reading how much people tend to overestimate women's speaking time might do something. If a man was loud, of course I feel the same. For the record, of course, there's areas and places where you're going to run into hens parties or whatever and you'd have to try a little to get a similarly obnoxious crowd of men. It's not so much your conviction that women talk more loudly or with less self-awareness that makes me sure it's at least partly a you issue. It's just the disdain, hatred underlying some of it. I think everyone has had a commute where they heard a chirpy, very clear female voice talk about what to wear to that party for 40 minutes and are ready to just off themselves. But there's a very big gap between that and finding the voices of women in general unbearably annoying. Especially when this also happens with women you get along with. Obviously you don't have to answer me, but maybe something to consider. Did you grow up in a household where your parents talked this way about women? It sounds to me, and I'm just saying this in case it's helpful, I'm well aware this is a stretch based on a few text posts, like you have internalized misogyny and you can't stand the chatter because it triggers feelings of shame, inferiority you have or used to have about your sex. Like, how can they be so shameless about it when you are always so diligent about toning it down? If this is 100% not you, whatever, just telling you what comes to mind reading your posts. Or maybe it is that your mother a bad person that it gave you some difficult feelings around femininity. All I can say is that I never go out in groups of women, ain't got time to meet all on the same day. I definitely don't feel comfortable calling in public and within earshot of others, but still I don't relate to what you're saying at all. No, I appreciate your thoughtful reply. I thought about it and no, I can't recall any comments about women's chatter. I just recall my mother being on the phone all the time and the same annoying feelings. And old friends wanting to talk for hours, but they lived far away and it wasn't often and the phone call was full of pauses. But my mother with other women, you know, it annoyed me that she would talk about me sometimes because I don't like the world knowing my business. She isn't very feminine either, but when I think of her mother, my grandma, she's a huge bleep. So maybe it rubbed off. And with groups of girls, my god, they just spent the time gossiping about others, and I don't care about talking about people negatively, and I think what they must say about me when I'm gone. And then my roommate, I like her, but every time she's here she's always talking and loud, and it annoys me because I just want to relax at home. She doesn't talk in a calm and soothing voice, it's a really annoying ranting voice, and that is what chatter sounds like to me. It's not even just the sound, but I feel the noise vibrating throughout my body. As for men, yes, they can annoy me, but men tend to talk really mellow and to the point. I don't hang out where groups of men would be, and like drinking a bleepo, I can avoid it. I also want to say what sounds bother me. Fireworks, cars honking, dogs barking, banging, or vibrations from around me, or any noise I can't control when I want to relax. Like right now it is late night, but the people around are constantly noisy. I'm already really stressed out from this. They don't respect others, they only care to make their own noise. I respect people and don't get it back. You think that's it? To be fair, for me, behavior like the group gossiping is just not on the radar, but my friends are pretty bleeping cool, and it's been some time since I was in social environments that didn't draw a specific kind of crowd. E.g., I don't like music so hard you have to struggle to understand each other, and your average group of girls, or guys for that matter, just looking to get drunk and be silly is going to places like that. So maybe you are just more unfortunate in your work, education circles, or your general area. I do really love talking myself and am fine talking about bleep. One of my closest friends is the same, and we can easily talk 5 minutes about her getting a new pair of socks that she thought for a moment that they had the bleeper so you don't slip and fall, but thankfully not, because it's so weird to walk around with those in the house, right? Yeah, feels really gross and sticky, that kind of thing, but the point of that is not to intellectually stimulate each other or even entertain each other. It is an act of intimacy that naturally I am interested in her thoughts about her most mundane happening, and naturally she feels she can take the floor to elaborate on that. Especially because there's always people you know are not interested in most of the mundane thoughts going through your head, right? So it can be kind of nicer, just spill and feel like you can blurt out whatever goes through your mind without judgment. Back when I was an unbearable teenager that thought everything bleep up alarme, spoiler, I just didn't dare to participate. My mom used to tell me, it works for other people, so there must be something to enjoy about it. Obviously at this point I don't think you're going to turn into a woo girl, but starting from the premise that apparently it is fun to other people might make it a little better. At least if it's just about the talking itself and not so much volume or situational awareness. Quote, fireworks, cars honking, dogs barking, banging, or vibrations from around me, or any noise I can't control when I want to relax. This is hard for me to judge. On the one hand, all the noises you mention are annoying, but again I can't say that I have ever actively experienced them as a problem in my life. The fact that you are talking about everyday irritations and not more mundane things like hearing someone clear their throat or eat makes me think that it's probably not an issue with noise, sound in itself, but then again being actively hindered by it in your life. I guess if you want to know, it would be most effective to ask people around you that live in the same area and are coming from the same position. If everyone looks at you funny, then you probably are extra sensitive to at least certain sounds. I respect people and don't get it back. You think that's it? Well, if you ask someone to keep it down and they get offended, then yeah, that's going to feel really bad. I definitely think it plays a big part for why you feel this way, that you experience the behavior as invasive and self-absorbed. But I think you are bleep-oming too much that they realize someone could be bothered by the talking. Especially on public transport. Next time people are being loud, look around you and see how many people keep scrolling on their phones without as much as a twitch. A lot of people just really are not easily distracted, or are already doing their own thing and need all their attention for that. Just like how some people are absolutely disgusted by hearing chewing noises and others never heard that to begin with. Basically, you are treating others the way you want to be treated, which is great. But perhaps they would also not be bothered at all, or even smile bemusedly, at witnessing a similar female group themselves, so it's not so much a double standard as a different standard. You're so kind. This is probably better than any therapy I could pay for. I've really had this issue for a long time. I don't understand it myself. I think it has to do with, like you said, I feel disrespected and hurt by the selfishness and lack of awareness. If they really don't realize they are loud, then when you tell them they should learn, but they don't. It's particularly loud country, and actually people do complain all the time about noise, but nothing is done. There have been murders over noise disturbances, not common but it happens. Also little mental health awareness and help here. Noise can and does affect your health, so it bothers me as much as people smoking does. By the way, I did grow up in a quiet area, but my house WA bleep times abusive with yellowing and fighting, so it is even more important that I can escape noise. I'm doing my best to get away. You're welcome. And on. I have one more thought that I didn't want to add because I'd max out the second post as well, but reading what you say here I want to include it just to be sure. I grew up with a dad with a pretty explosive temper, and it was implicitly drilled into me from a young age onwards that I had to learn not to attract attention to myself in many situations, never to provoke anyone. The least you can do is make sure that you are not asking for anything, and so on. My first friends I made as I aged were very similar, to put it bluntly, kind of apologetic for existing, mortified if they angered someone even if it was through no fault of their own, that kind of thing. The first friends I made that were very different, that took up more space and were more bleepertive. It made me so irrationally angry at times. It took me a lot of puzzling to realize I was just really jealous to suddenly see that some people felt so much more welcome in the world. That it WA bleeper much more natural that they could ask things of others, could make mistakes, could be annoying sometimes without that meaning they were bad people. Again, maybe this is not your thing, but I got reminded of it. I had that same powerless feeling of not understanding why it gets such a rise out of you. Having said that, quote, there have been murders over noise disturbances to sound very extreme, and it is quite possible that what I think of when picturing rowdy sorority girls is not your idea of a rowdy group of drunk girls. Noise can and does affect your health. This is, sadly, very true. Stress is big. I don't have a suggestion other than meditation for concentration, noise cancelling if you can afford it, and keep probing what might be the root cause. You're not instantly rid of inclinations just because you understand them. You can really make them have less power over you when you know what's going on and why, and can tell yourself, nope, not today, we're not going into this now. Quote, I have one more thought, that's exactly my experience, sad face. Better make it a good one, then. Quote, I'll try to get some sleep tonight and then try again tomorrow when I see her. Be at your best. Relax, sleep properly, eat properly as possible. I can fap more tar and bleep per day, but honestly I rarely do, so that might be been part of it. I still think that's unlikely. The other things that I pointed on the post that you quoted are more important. You were able to get hard, get a BJ and C bleep, weren't you? Yeah, she was watching for when I'd get hard, and then when she found it she went for it. Hopefully tonight I sleep. Not much else I can do about the stomach nutrition. I didn't care before, but now I kind of do. Reading up on this astrology bleep is kind of interesting. Why the hate with Scorpios? She was AF bleep in Taurus. Taurus and Scorpio are not an easy combination according to astrology. They are opposites, which is not even the worst angle honestly. It's more of a you'll feel very drawn to each other or repelled. Both can happen, but also very mystified by what moves the other person. Also, in general, Scorpios are supposedly these intense, hypersexual people. This is a pretty flat description, but for people who casually read about astrology now and then, it's what they all know. Scorpio is intense, up for anything, vengeful, secretive. In general, if you want real astrology, you have to look at your entire birth chart and not just your sun sign. She's being a pleb anyway. And it is also just possible that this is her own conclusion after noticing she does not typically get along with Scorpios or something like that. Again though, don't take it too seriously, it's really just a thing to PA bleep time with, like the Myers-Briggs or whatever else. Women also will talk more PA bleepinately, they seem to talk over each other as well. When I worked in a restaurant, you could really hear the difference between a table of 5 guys versus a table of 5 girls, on average of course. And those tables of all girls with like 10 of them were downright deafening. You have a girl come over your house, but she doesn't want to do anything waist down because she says she is not ready. Then you don't speak for 20 days. We were both on vacations out of town. Is it over? TBH, I really like her and want to continue things. Any advice how to approach now that we are both back in town? I see no reason why it would be over, just based on this. You were there of course, so perhaps it was more awkward than I'm picturing right now. But wanting to take your time before you bear it all for someone you're still getting to know, presumably, or not talking for 3 weeks when you're both having a busy time, is nothing alarming to me. Just act like nothing happened and suggest to get drinks or whatever so you can catch up. I see. Well, this is just from my perspective, but I had a great time and I thought she did too. At least it looked like she did. I'll play it cool and invite her over this weekend. Thanks, senpai. Ladies, why do you act like you generally care about men? I've never met a man who genuinely confided his deepest anxieties or worst mental health issues with his partner, who didn't look at him as the less than after. Kind of hard to argue with anecdotal evidence, especially without knowing the situation. How sure are you that those guys didn't feel less than and projected that on the partners? At least in some cases, but I sure have never met a woman who did not care about men, both in general and especially a partner. Said what you've witnessed definitely happens, but I find these kinds of things are a local culture issue. Everyone you know acts this way, everyone I know acts another way. If we didn't have the internet and bleep transportation, we'd have every reason to believe our respective perspectives are just an inherent aspect of human nature. I like myself now, my ideal is like me with similar interests, same disposition, maybe a little braver or open emotionally, and dark hair and eyes. It depends entirely on the relationship. I do know of situations like that, but usually it's intercultural marriages where a person with a diagnosed condition is in a relationship with a person from a culture that doesn't believe in mental illness or believes that mentally ill people are evil, dangerous, etc. Last night in bed, boyfriend was laughing and messing around and said this, imagine if we had a baby, wouldn't it be funny? Like, can you imagine that happening? Thoughts? Sounds like he gave you a good opener to say lol why and start a discussion. Too bad you sat there in presumable silence instead, because now we'll never know. Not always. If you do it a lot, maybe she slept in or was busy or just didn't feel the need to reply. If it's early on, maybe she wants to not seem so excited and eager. If she doesn't text in a day or two and you text again and no reply again, it's bad. quote, if she doesn't text in a day or two and you text again and no reply again, it's bad. We've already been on a few dates and they seem to went well. Will you get busy and sidetracked, man? It's not like you live far away from each other. If it was a long-distance relationship, people would expect constant communication, but if you guys live near each other, then it's not that big of a deal. We'll see, I guess. Yeah, you would stop loving him and start resenting him for getting you pregnant, thinking you had a future beyond having a healthy, loving family. No, instead, you don't need no man to make an honest woman out of you. Feminism, how lonely and sad you'll be when you realize being a mother isn't a bad thing. Oh, but for now keep thinking you're above creating life. Hello LWTF, who pissed in your cornflakes? Enjoy your bliss, because I know I miss it. Two girls from Tinder flaked on a planned date. Should I try to keep talking to them? Only if you're attracted to flaky people. And even then, I'd be more inclined to suggest therapy first, for fear that you're a danger to yourself for willingly pursuing torture. If with flaking you mean you were going to meet up and then it wasn't a good time anyway, decide based on how much you like them. If they actually cancelled on the day itself without sincere apologies plus a counter-offer, bleep that, have some self-respect.